Okay, August 12th, 2025, 12-step workshop.
Welcome to the 12-step path big book workshop. My name is Lisa and I am a long-term student of the 12 steps path. We are so glad you are participating. It is never too late to start this journey. Just a couple of workshop reminders. Please remember to keep yourselves muted unless you are called on to speak during the discussion part of the workshop. If you haven't registered for the workshop, please do so at www.12stepspath.com. Please do not crosstalk. If you would like to speak, raise your virtual hand and you will be called on in order. We leave the chat open during the entire meeting. If you want to chat, you can use the chat. If you want to get a chat to me, please send it to Lolly because I can't look at the chat. And you can also check the chat for additional information. You'll see a small little indicator light to let you know that there's new chats available. So please join me in a prayer for intervention. Intervention so that we have the gift of an open mind and an open heart, even more than we intended. We are setting aside, letting go of our preconceived notions, and we open our minds, open it to the higher power, the power that guides us in our daily endeavors. So while you're muted, please say along with me the set aside prayer. God, please set aside everything that I think I know about myself, my brokenness, my spiritual path, and you for an open mind and a new experience with myself, my brokenness, my spiritual path, and especially you. Please also join me in the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So tonight we're going to start with the reminder of why we went backwards from steps 12 to 10. Ideally, this is an invitation to begin this journey of powerlessness with the tools of power already in our toolboxes. The starting goal is to implement at least 1 minute of intentional consciousness per day. You know, if you can do more, that's great. If you can only do a minute, that's great. We do this process with the Step 10 tool to remove the disturbances within ourselves on a regular cyclical basis. We do it on a daily basis to the degree that we are able, due to the blocks that will come up inside of us and block the light of the spirit. Then you'll also practice your meditation routine on a daily basis, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is, but try to do it on the daily. Our vision and intention in studying the 12 steps is to have a spiritual awakening. So we have set aside the time in order to do the work to attain this goal. We practice our meditation and we practice our step 10 spot checks. And along with the step 11 and step 12, we carry this message through sponsorship, step guidance, and the practice of the principles in all our affairs. The Big Book was written and the fellowship was created because of the need to address the growing number of people with debilitating addiction. The bondage of self means a reliance on one's own limited willpower and judgment, rather than seeking guidance from a higher power. So we ask ourselves, where is my life not working? And what is my source of suffering? It's important to know the source, as this workshop is a progression of self-diagnosis, so that you will get to the root of the cause of your problems. How effective are my efforts? Did the solutions I try on my issues work? Am I happy with the results of the efforts? Do I really want to change? Or am I Or am I content in my misery because it is familiar? Am I up to the task of what is required for my life to be different? If you're honest with yourself, you'll know. If you are content, I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise, but you'll know if you are or not, if you're really honest with yourself. But if you take an inventory of the major areas of your life and you're not happy with perhaps how you feel or how things are, it's time for a change. What would the change in your life look like if you were allowed to be successful? It's good to know what you would like to change, or else how would you go about changing it? How do you feel about change? Does it terrify you? Or do you enjoy changes that come with life's challenges and the newness that entails? Guess what the number one reason is that people don't change? What would you think? It's fear. When you get used to something, it becomes normal and comforting, even when it's bad. Changing your normal, whether it's your environment, your thinking patterns, or behaviors, brings uncertainty because you don't know what effect the change will have. And with uncertainty comes the fear. Some questions you can ask yourself to determine if your efforts are working would be, am I moving forward in my life? Do I feel optimistic about the future? Am I checking off things on my to-do list? Do I generally feel happy and positive, or is my past holding me back? So today, what is the invitation in terms of action? And the bigger question is, what is the purpose of my life, or life in general? What do I believe is my destiny? Why are we here on this planet? We begin the journey with the 12 steps by looking for power, because we have had a practical experience and now we are going to have a knowledgeable experience of what the problems are in the first step: the body, the mind, the will, the allergy, the obsession, the spiritual malady. And then we're going to look for power, generally a term also used for God. Power is the issue because lack of power is my problem. But how do I find power? We find power by identifying it in ourselves, the dark areas that block the light that is in all of us. What is the problem? Why can't we connect? Because we have created obstacles, blocks to the light. In terms of blocking my relationship to myself, this darkness is in me. That is what the big book step process is all about. It assumes that underneath there is a power, and that this power in me is in me also. And the reason is because I have a self-centered, self-created block to the light. It is hindering my relationship with not only myself, but also blocking my relationship with others. In the big book, Bill refers to step 10, 11, and 12, saying, we commence this way of living. And also says in the beginning of step 10, that the deflation of the ego and the turning that we committed to in the third step has been accomplished by the end of the 9th step. On page 25, Bill uses the terminology of a rocket ship that is rocketed into the 4th dimension. Well, what is the 4th dimension? Bill wrote the big book in 1939, and believe it or not, at that time, he wasn't aware that Einstein had indicated that there was a 4th dimension. Seems like that's not even possible. Of course, Bill wasn't thinking of that when he used the term 4th dimension. He was talking about looking at the first 3 dimensions, width, height, and depth, which is known as 3D, the 3rd dimension. The 4th dimension is the immaterial world, the world of the spirit, according to Bill in the big book. In Bill's terms, we need to get on board the rocket and it will take us to where it is going. Once on board, it takes us to where it wants to take us because we are not in control. Into stage 2, where we identify and remove our obstacles and shortcomings and continue onward to stage 3. Some people wrongly believe that steps 10, 11, and 12 are maintenance steps, and they most certainly are not. 10, 11, and 12 are sustaining steps for growth. Listen to step 11 when it says, improve your conscious contact. Listen to step 12, enlarge your spiritual life. This is certainly not maintaining, but it is sustaining and expanding, and the rocket metaphor makes it real. Bill used the rocket ship metaphor in the sense that we have been taken to a place or a destination when in orbit around the light, and we have recovered. We have recovered, no longer in bondage of our addiction. First half of the first step, we have freedom. We have been placed in a position of neutrality. We have recovered, no longer in bondage of our addiction. First half of the first step, we have the freedom. This is the point of steps 1 through 9, dealing with an addiction with a program of recovery. My chains of addiction are released, but I still have a choice to make because even with my chains removed, I'm still not recovered in my will. I am standing at a crossroad and need to take a direction, freedom or suffering. Notice I am a self-inflicted victim of my own ego. I'm still debating. Bill guarantees we will be recovered in step 10, stating we are placed in a position of neutrality. You see the chains are removed, the path is clear, the darkness removed, and I have come to the realization that I was the one who held the key to unlock myself from myself, imposed chains of misery. Through my constant contact with my higher power, I'm rocketed into the 4th dimension. But where is it taking me? It takes me into orbit around the light that is the whole purpose of the rocket launch, to stay in orbit around that light as much as I possibly can. When we choose the light, we deflate the ego, and that puts us into orbit. Now the light can shine onto us and in us and eventually through us to others. We're not cured. We have a daily reprieve, a practice of step 10, emotional sobriety, when and if we are doing spot checks as we go through our day. And yeah, we're not cured. We have this daily reprieve, which is not to be taken for granted. We have to actively use our 12-step practice while rocketing around the power. Our focus is on our faith, not our fear, and we carry this focus with us everywhere we go. As our focus changes, our life follows suit. So if we start focusing away from the light, our life will start focusing away from the life, vice versa. And what is emotional sobriety? What does that mean? Well, emotional sobriety goes beyond the absence of addictive substances. It is about developing a skill set that enables a person to manage their emotions in a healthy way, preventing them from resorting to substances as a coping mechanism. This vital aspect of recovery is all about learning to regulate negative feelings, which, if left unmanaged, can cause discomfort, cravings, and potentially relapse. The development of emotional sobriety is a lifelong project requiring a shift in the way one perceives life's challenges. We improve our understanding and effectiveness with step 11. Step 11 focuses on prayer and meditation. It improves our understanding by fostering a deeper spiritual connection and guiding us towards a life aligned with the higher power's will. This step encourages self-reflection, mindfulness, and a higher power for guidance and strength. By actively engaging in prayer and meditation, you will gain a clearer understanding of your spiritual journey and how to navigate challenges in life and in your recovery. Step 12 significantly enlarges our effectiveness with sobriety by focusing on two key actions: carrying the message to others struggling with addiction, and practicing the principles of the program in all aspects of our life. Meaning, not just when you're at a meeting or when you're talking to a fellow. This is every area of your life. You can bring these principles into your workplace, whether there's addiction or not, and make a huge difference in your life. Here's how these two aspects contribute to stronger sobriety. Carrying the message reinforces personal commitment. Sharing your experience, strength, and hope with newcomers reminds you of the difficulty you've had with your journey and the preciousness of your own sobriety. Not cured means that my will is still effective as a human being, not as an addict, but as a human being. My will is defective, and my will always choose me. That is the way we are hardwired. And Bill says we need intervention and spiritual intervention. Helping others find recovery instills a strong sense of purpose and meaning, shifting focus away from self-centeredness and fostering selflessness. A spiritual awakening is a profound, transformative experience of immense change, involving a shift in consciousness and a reevaluation of one's relationship with the self, others, and the world. It's often characterized by a heightened sense of awareness, a change in worldview, and a feeling of deeper connection to something larger than oneself. It's not a simple change. It is a radical change in the way we think, feel, and behave. It involves a complete overhaul of existing systems, practices, or structures, leading to a new and enlightened state of existence. It is a departure from your status quo, a fundamental shift in how things are done, a complete rethinking of how you show up in your life. How you think, feel, and behave will take on a new, almost unrecognizable version of your old self. And this is done to us, not by us. This is so powerful. It is not self-development or self-help. It is divine intervention from our source of power. This is why finding our power is so important, because we cannot do this kind of work alone. And our action and willingness are also important. We do our part and we allow our higher power to do its part. We co-create. Done to us, not by us, but not without us. How willing are you? Do you have an inclination to take the action? Because willingness is critical, and without action, there's nothing. Our actions tell us how willing we really are. Therefore, if your feet aren't moving, then your willingness is just talk, because we do have a choice. And because we do have a choice, we enter the world of spirit. We have dealt with our humanity and our addiction. We have finished step 9. And according to Bill W., we are recovered. We have physical sobriety. It is guaranteed. Read pages 84 and 85. It's very clear. Bill doesn't give much credit to the effort that we obviously applied in order to finish the 9th step, but he does say that we are placed in a position of neutrality. We are not cured. We have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition because addiction is a chronic issue, and sobriety is maintained one day at a time through a spiritual connection. Bill's statement that we are not cured, that we have a daily reprieve, highlights the ongoing effort required to manage the disease and emphasizes that sobriety is not a permanent state achieved once and for all, but rather a continuous process of relying on a higher power. When Bill talks about clearing the channel every day, he's referring to the practice of clearing one's mind and emotional state of negativity and self-centeredness to better connect with a higher power in order to make sound decisions. It's about actively managing one's thoughts and emotions to maintain emotional sobriety and spiritual well-being, because we can never be cured of our humanity. So we clean up our past as much as we can through the fourth step, and we continue our way of living. We remove our obstacles that show up in our daily life, keeping the channel clear by using the Step 10 inventory on the spot. Regarding the obstacles that show up, on page 85, Bill wrote, "We ask God at once to remove them: selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear, immediately, and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to somebody we can help." We start each morning with a clean slate. We clear the channel when we awaken so that we can fill it with the light to carry it into our day. And we talk to our higher power for guidance about our day, and we listen for direction. In order to ensure our channel stays pristine, we stick to our meditation schedule on a daily basis. Pages 85 to 88 summarize a Step 11 script that will give you a description of what to do and how to do it, and the prayers and questions to ask that are a literal translation of the big book. Adding in your knowledge and your experiences makes it easy if you don't have a prayer meditation practice. And we take our light-filled channel out into the world and we use it in our everyday life. We are beacons of light as we sponsor or guide people through this process of recovery. We are a channel of God. My higher power lights the way, and it glows through me and reaches others like a beacon through my experience of being on the path and in the flow. I am confident and secured in my experience that you will have your own experience, and I'm not invested in your recovery, but I am passionate and committed, and I hope and pray that you have this sacred experience also. A famous prayer that unquestionably fits this step is the prayer of Saint Francis. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. So the basic premise of the 12-step meeting is that people can support one another, achieve and maintain abstinence from the substances or processes to which they are addicted. They do this through meetings in which they share their experiences, strength, and hope with one another, and support each other in the ongoing effort of maintaining their abstinence. Then there is the big book. It is our instruction manual, and the steps are contained in it, and we follow the steps continually. We never graduate from the 12-step process. The 12 steps are a precise process, one that many find difficult to understand at first, and we often need help to figure it out, no matter how intelligent we might be. Of course, there is prayer, because we are powerless. We need our higher power to navigate our life. And the big book suggests contrary action, and we learn how to help other people by going to meetings and being of service, but also by helping maybe get through the steps or some other way. I thought for a very long time that meetings were the only way. And even when they may have hardly mentioned the steps of the big book, I still believed that you had to attend meetings. That was the answer. And I once attended 90 meetings in 30 days. So I was very determined that I was going to get well. And meetings may have gotten me sober, but they didn't get me spiritually recovered. My sponsors were mostly sounding boards and life preservers when I was going under without my power in place. I needed an in-depth analysis or thorough examination into the steps with the work of step guidance, and more importantly, I needed to walk the 12-step path. The big book doesn't even have the word sponsor in it, which is amazing, but it does tell us to carry the message. But it is not talking about specifically sponsorship. It wasn't a familiar word in 1939. It wasn't until 1951 Bill wrote the 12 and 12, and he alluded to sponsorship there. So in those 12 years, the word sponsor became entrenched into the fellowships. On page 18, Bill says, the problem drinker who has found the solution, who is properly armed with facts about themselves, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours until such an understanding is reached. Herb K has a once-a-month step guide meeting. If anyone would like any information about that, just let me know. He does a great thing on sponsorship and step guidance. On page 18 in italics of the big book, it says, the ex-addict who has found the solution and is sufficiently armed with the truth and facts about themselves can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. In order to be armed with the facts about ourselves, we must complete steps 4 and 5, and until then, you are not equipped to sponsor anyone. It's not hard and fast, but it is highly recommended. Preach the good word of the big book. Be the way of life. Be the lantern lighting the path. This is a program of attraction, not promotion. It's not helpful to say, don't use your whatever your addiction is, no matter what, because an addict will use and no matter what. Diligence, commitment, fear, and desire, meetings and prayer, and walking the steps, meditation, and working with others is not going to keep you sober. Sobriety, a relief from addiction, comes from a relationship with power. We do all those other things to have a relationship with power, but I can't do it. I can't work the steps and deal effectively with my addiction. I can work the steps to have an effective relationship with power, and then I will have been given the gift of neutrality on a daily basis. I'll be given the gift of navigating life with a sense of order, and the dimmer switch will go up a notch at a time, and I will be in alignment with reality as I understand alignment. And tomorrow, I will have a better and different understanding than I had today. So small increments are fantastic. We're really just practicing at life. We are human and we will always be human, but we are learning from our mistakes. That is where wisdom comes from. And when we learn more, we make less mistakes because we correct them more efficiently, but we will never transcend our humanity. I have been restored to sanity in terms of my addiction, but I have been given the gift of emotional maturity because I am more often in alignment with reality, with what is the truth. Not my truth, but the truth. I am in the flow and reality happens on a day by day, hour by hour, and often second by second basis. And I am in the flow because I am conscious and I make a conscious decision to stay as conscious as possible, to stay in alignment. So that when I am out of alignment, my consciousness tells me so, and I get right back into my alignment. Bill and Bob went to hospitals and they went to jails, institutions, missions. They basically went wherever problems were with addiction to see if they could bring help to the people who were suffering. Not everybody wants help. They might not want to suffer, but they don't want to quit doing what they're doing. They just want to learn how to manage it. And that, as we all know, is impossible. Nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. That is the first line on page 89. Bill says, practice these principles in all of our affairs. Bill never actually gives us a list of principles in the big book, but he has put reference to the principles in chapters 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Practicing these principles in all our affairs means applying the spiritual principles learned through the 12 steps to every aspect of life, not just during recovery from alcoholism. It involves integrating principles like honesty, humility, and service into our daily living, extending beyond the confines of the AA program. This means striving to have a life aligned with the values of the program in all areas, including relationships, work, and even personal choices. Chapter 8 is in reference to the whys. Chapter 9 is about the family afterward. And chapter 10 is to the employer, principles at work. Chapter 11 says basically to just practice principles in your community and in your fellowship. Read the chapters at some point, looking for the principles. On page 60 of Herb's Way of Life document, there is a list of the principles. And if you're so inclined, you could use these as a meditation. Take one a day or one a week or even one a month. There's a bunch of them. And allow some guidance to take place as you go through them. This 12-step recovery process is not an event, nor is it a one and done. It is an integration that takes place over time, over a period of time. Just prior to finding the deep dive method of step work, I was in crisis. And as I said, I attended 90 meetings in 30 days, and I was getting exhausted. My sponsor kept saying to me, I needed God, I needed to pray more, and I was feeling like she was just shoving religion down my throat. So I fired her. And then I spent a long time treading water and playing with the program. I was recovered, like Bill says, but it seemed like there was something missing until I worked the steps. No more wondering why talk meetings weren't getting me where I needed to go. Once I studied the 12 steps, I started to emotionally grow up and spiritually connect and further my connection to my higher power. I also ramped up the amount of work time I put into my 12-step study, and I continue to emotionally grow up and spiritually connect deeper. Bill calls this a rite of passage in the 12 and 12. It says, this process brings children to become adults. And I did feel that I felt like as I continued with the steps and really put more work into it, I felt like I was finally growing up in my 50s and 60s. I was well aware that the big book says we are not cured until you deal effectively with your unmanageability. And the spirituality on a daily basis, the obsessions will return. The spiritual shield we thought would always protect us will be pierced. Our thoughts will hijack us with, it will be different this time, and yet we will still relapse. And a while later, a month, a year, a decade, who knows how long, we will wonder what happened. How did we get back here? We thought we were done. Because our way of life is a turning. If you want a litmus test, the question always asked is, what is God's will and what is my will? This is about the turning in step 3, which is we made the decision to turn, it doesn't say surrender, surrender's not in the big book, but to turn our will and our lives over to God. Step 3 is a ferocious act of our will with all of the willpower we can muster. We take the actions of steps 4 through 9, a huge commitment and a massive amount of effort. In Herb's travels, he has said he's witnessed a 100% success in people whose addictions are put into neutrality at the end of the 9th step. Sometimes even before that, but always 100%. No failures of people who finish the 9 steps out of the big book. When Herb says that, he doesn't mean read the 9 steps. He means implement those 9 steps into your life. To be successful, we deal effectively with resentments, experiencing forgiveness for the first time, resulting in a release, and we release ourselves and we release them. There is a diminishment of fear, or maybe even the elimination based on trust, which was my experience. I began completely consumed by my fears and lack of trust in my higher power. When the trust in my higher power came, I went from an agoraphobic who could not leave her house and completely lacking trust to flying to London by myself. That can show you the difference that this program can make. The sex inventory in step 4 is designed to help us confront and understand our sexual behavior, patterns, and motivations. As the big book advises, we subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? And that's a really good way to look at the sex inventory. Was this a selfish act? Did I try to engage with this person in a selfish way because I knew he was married, or the stories. How selfish was it? And we become rigorously transparent and honest, which means having our insides match our outsides. Bill emphasizes the necessity of rigorous honesty as a core principle for recovery from alcoholism and addiction. He states that individuals who cannot or will not be honest with themselves are unlikely to succeed in the program. Bill uses the term rigorous to indicate a level of honesty beyond ordinary or casual honesty, suggesting a deep, unflinching commitment to truth in all aspects of our lives. You've all probably heard we're as sick as our secrets. Well, sick as our secrets means that keeping harmful secrets, especially those related to addiction or past wrongdoings, can prevent recovery and maintain a state of illness. Secrets fester, leading to self-loathing, shame, and an inability to connect with others, which are all detrimental to overcoming addiction. Sharing these secrets, particularly through steps 4 and 5, is crucial for healing and recovery. The idea of being as sick as our secrets can apply to other areas of life as well. Secrets can stem from past traumas, negative self-talk, or unhealthy coping mechanisms. Keeping them hidden can negatively impact mental and emotional well-being. In the big books, there is a phrase: a spiritual awakening is the difference between willfulness and willingness. It highlights a critical shift in perspective and behavior necessary for recovery. It means moving from a place of stubborn resistance and self-centeredness, which is willfulness, to a place of openness, acceptance, and a willingness to cooperate and change. This shift is seen as a key component of the spiritual experience or spiritual awakening that can lead to lasting sobriety. In the context of the big book, willfulness is characterized by stubbornness, resistance to outside suggestions, and having insistence on having one's own way, often fueled by self-centeredness and a desire for control. Yes, the mindset of yes, but, and a refusal to accept what is, clinging to unrealistic desires, and trying to force things to be a certain way. Willingness, on the other hand, is about being open to new ideas, accepting the present moment, and being receptive to guidance from others, particularly a sponsor or a higher power. It involves the willingness to let go of control and to cooperate with the suggestions of the 12 steps. All right. Rita, you have your hand raised. Hold on, let's get you to unmute first.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna take a picture of this because it's too much to write down. Before we go, if you don't mind. Yeah, I had a couple questions and a couple comments. Emotional sobriety. I know I struggle with trying to understand exactly what that is. Physical sobriety, I know I've achieved because I'm not craving alcohol. I told you, my cravings have now switched to sugar. I've been abstinent from sugar now going on a month. And I've really, over the last 4 years, 5 years, I've really gotten into focusing on spirituality, having a really deep conscious contact with God. My higher power is God. But I'm not quite sure. I'm looking at the body, mind, and the will of what, if I really totally understand what we mean by emotional sobriety, physical, emotional, and spiritual, because I think if I understood the emotional better, maybe I'm missing the sandwich. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's possible to try to have both of the outsides and miss the cream of the Oreo, if that makes sense.
It is actually, because the emotional part of sobriety is the part where we actually begin to grow up and grow out of our addictive state. So when people begin to use addictions, they're generally in a state of stunted emotional growth. They don't grow emotionally, and they stay in that state until they finally get into recovery. But it's beyond just the physical recovery. You have to address the emotional part of your recovery. So what that means is we let go of some of those things that we would have done when we were using, like jealousy and unhealthy self-esteem, dishonesty. When we get to a place where we're saying, okay, I don't want to be dishonest anymore, and I don't want to keep secrets, we begin to mature. We begin to realize we want to grow up and stop behaving like we're not emotionally stable, or we're not emotionally advancing. So that's
Okay.
what emotional sobriety is. Because if I'm sure in your travels you've met people who have stopped their addiction, but they still behave the same way.
Oh, yes.
Some people call it a dry drunk, where
Yes.
the guy's not, or the woman is not putting the alcohol in their mouth, but they're still behaving the same way because they haven't emotionally grasped recovery. And some people stay in that state. It's not as uncommon as you would think. They can go their whole life and feel like, well, I didn't drink, and that's enough. And some people that surround them say it was enough for me because at least they weren't using. But this
Okay. So,
step that's often skipped because it's a huge part of recovering. We can't stay recovered if we're in our old mindset and thinking the old ways and behaving immaturely. We have to grow emotionally too.
this is okay, because then for me, I see this as something then that I will be working on for a long time. It's something that I will continuously be working on, and it's not like a stagnant type thing. If I'm looking at this correctly, emotional sobriety is something that, I will continue this along with my spiritual.
Yeah, nothing that's alive is stagnant. So if you're
Okay.
alive, you want to be in motion. You want to be going forward. And if you're not and you're standing still, that's a definition of being dead. So yeah,
Okay.
you're gonna always, as long as you're alive, you're gonna progress, you're gonna go forward. That's the goal.
Okay.
So, you know, having the awareness that, okay, there's an emotional factor to all of this, and now I get it, because I'm thinking about all these, you know, instances where it makes sense. In the beginning, you might have a huge development, but over life and over time, you see these come up and you address them. You know, maybe before, you know, you get in a grocery line and it gets really backed up and you start getting all huffy and puffy and almost embarrassing maybe somebody, and that's an immaturity that we grow out of, because
Right.
we're not trying to be that kind of person in our lives anymore. We need growth.
Okay.
To be alive is to grow, and to grow is to be alive, however you want to say it. But that's, it's part of all of the factors. It's making the picture complete.
Okay. Yeah, I did a 12-week class that I did for sexual abuse survivors. And I just did that before I started taking this. And that helped a lot, I believe, with my emotional sobriety.
Yeah, that would help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to get through, you know, a lot
Yeah.
of things that keep, like whack-a-mole, that keep coming up.
It is like whack-a-mole, and it's, you know, with anything that we're trying to overcome, there's emotional baggage that has to be addressed, especially when you're talking about things like trauma and, you know, some of the events that we go through, that it leaves us stunted because we're so busy surviving. We don't have time to mature emotionally, physically, spiritually.
Right, right.
So once we realize that this has gone on, then we can start saying, okay, I'm ready to grow emotionally now. Because I don't want to walk around as a 3-year-old wounded person and scream at everybody that I come across. That's emotionally immature, no matter what happened to us.
Understand. Okay. And I love what you said about the meetings, because oh my God, yeah, that's ditto, right? The 90 meetings in 90 days and all the other things you hear. And oh, if you could count all the times you've been to a meeting and you've heard someone say they've got 30 or 40 years sobriety, and you listen to them and you're just like, holy moly, you know, it's, and
You
I'd
know,
always heard meeting makers make it and people who don't make meetings don't make it. And there's so much untruth to that.
that's kind of old school. When I first got into the programs, it was in the 70s. People weren't even talking about the steps. I mean, we knew there was a big book and we knew there was steps in it, but we would read it like we read any book. We read it and put it down. We didn't know we were supposed to work the steps.
Right.
But it was just a book we read. It's like reading the Bible, you know, you read through the Bible and that's it. But we've got to apply it. It's not a book to read. It's a book. It's an educational book, really. We're
Agreed.
learning to be different than what we've come into the rooms with.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking and sharing.
Thanks.
Hi, Mark.
Yeah, hi, how are you?
Great.
I actually some stuff I at first I wasn't going to share, but some stuff came up just listening. So one thing that I thought that was really, really powerful that just hit me from listening is that I can remember when I went to my very first program that they told me, you know, like to do the program and just sort of like live my life. And off and on through all the different programs, I had people like kind of tell me to not hide in the meetings and so forth and so on. And it really hit me kind of hard that that whole advice of like actually living it like a God program, and like not needing the meetings as a crutch is the only way to say, I can say it, is something that I'm doing very easily since I've been in this workshop, if that makes sense. And it just kind of like clicked, like when I was in the group, and I was, because instead of doing that, I work on things that are going to work towards my getting free of my particular process addiction I'm working on here. And And but it just like kind of clicked that it, like when I was sitting here listening to the previous share, I was like, it really is like I do all those different things to have the higher power in my life, but I don't want to do those things to not have a life. Now, I have been guilty of kind of hiding out, and I just realized that this is, it's so funny. Even though this is like a year commitment, that I'm finding myself like doing stuff that I had like different sponsors over the years trying to get me to do, or even friends, like just like, you know what I mean? You just need one meeting. You don't need one every day, or whatever the different variations they were trying to get me to do. And like, just live your life, don't hide out. And it was just kind of interesting. And and then I think another quick thing that kind of came up was that I was talking to a long-term friend that I've known for many years, from one of my from a couple. He's in a couple of my programs, and it's not about him being bad, but I was like listening to him earlier this week, and for the first time since I've known him, I realized that I didn't want to hear the story he was telling me. You know what I mean? Like it, and it's not about his resentments. It was like that the stuff that he was telling me, I was sitting there and I was on the other side of the phone. I was like, why do I listen to this? And like, I've listened to this like for 15 years. And I was like, why? And it's not about cutting people off, but it was, like, cause I don't plan to do that at my age, but it was just more so I don't have to listen to that though. Like
That's right.
I can be his friend and be like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go now. You know what I'm saying? Like I can do that. I don't have to listen to that, as I thought I did, I guess, for 15 years.
And you know
So
what, Mark? That's emotional sobriety. Being able to know emotionally that you don't have to listen. You can just take care of you, and it would be immature to continue to listen when you really didn't want to. So that's a good example,
thank you.
even though maybe you weren't setting out to give me that example for that, but that is an example of emotional maturity or sobriety. So keep doing it. And
I will.
it's not that me or the information I'm giving off is saying that meetings aren't important. Meetings are extremely important when people are in the throes of the disease, meaning they go to a meeting every day just to survive. I'm not saying that it doesn't work. But like Bill says, we want to get to a place where we've recovered, which means our body and our mind. The rest can come later, but in the beginning, those meetings are crucial to physical sobriety, meaning whether you're picking something up physically, whether it's a phone or a drink. In the beginning, those meetings experience strength and hope, gets us to the place where we want to continue down the path even further and get into the deep dive stuff of the 12 steps. So I don't want to sound like I'm saying, no meetings. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there is a progression. And if we're in meetings like I was in for a long time, where we're not talking about the 12 steps, or we're just reading a paragraph out of a book in the introduction, we need to think about that. So, any other questions or comments? Hi, Rochelle.
I couldn't find the hand. So, you know what, I've been in the program. I came in when I was pregnant with my son, and he's 46. So I thought, and I can remember then it was like they handed you a gray sheet or a pink sheet, the two diets, and you got a choice. You either pretty much starved or you starved with a little more. And that was what we talked about, at the meetings, was the substance. And But I got a lot out of today. Normally I'm in LA, but I come up to Washington ostensibly to see my grandchildren. And my grandson is 13 and doesn't have a lot of use for me. He's not, I don't know how to say it. He's 13 and he's a boy.
Yeah,
I don't know what
13.
else to say.
Yeah.
But for a week now, I've been asking him to come to my place, or I would pick him up. I'm 10 minutes away to lift this heavy package to take it to Amazon Go to return it. And it's like, I can't do it. I'm busy with my friends. I'm doing it. And I've been getting more and more and more into, don't you know how much I've done for you? You're on your bike. Who do you think paid for the bike? I mean, I have gone into this whole thing. And I thought I'd made a lot of progress. And you said something here that it's sort of like shit happens, life happens. I don't remember what it was, but something you said that was like, we have to do it all the time, every day. And this stuff happens as I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and I'm reading and I'm thinking, these are my expectations of how a perfect 13-year-old child should be. He should be devoted to his grandmother and eternally grateful. And he's not resentful, he's just not interested in, but that's not what I see the way he should be. So for me, it's a lot about changing my expectations about other people because all they do is make me want to eat. I just have to, and I have to focus. Somebody said once at a meeting, focus on the prize. What's the prize that you need? I need these packages returned to Amazon Go. So I need to just say to him, just make a commitment and not worry about his self-esteem and say, I need you to help me do this, period. So I got a lot out of what you did today. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Rochelle. Anyone else? Hi, Sarah. Nope, I can't hear you. Hold on, Sarah. I'm not hearing you.
She is unmuted, but we don't hear her.
She's
Sarah, we
unmuted.
don't hear you.
Check to see if your headphones are completely pushed in the thing.
Just take them out like that. Now
Now
you
I
can,
can hear you.
yeah, okay. I've had that problem before. I
Mm.
just make it a comment about the assignment. I read the chapter 12 in the 12 and 12. And for the first time, I really got a lot out of that. I haven't read it for a long time, years. It was almost like I had never read it before. But in that, it's so well written. I really just kind of lapped it up because he talks about, I've always considered so much of the doing service is based upon helping people through the 12 steps. And I feel rather new to the 12 steps, and I'm still kind of grappling with some of the things myself. But in the 12 and 12, they just talked about just doing service. Herb K talks of being helpful. And I thought, oh, I do a lot of things, helping my neighbors, and I basically am a helper. So I thought, oh, I guess it's not, I'm applying the 12 steps, but not so much to people with, I do have sponsees, I have a new one. And actually I'm gonna be trying to take her through Herb's approach, the more spiritual approach, awareness approach, because I must say, in the food addict programs that I have been in, they're really not very much based on the 12 steps, and certainly, at least in my experience, have not really addressed the spiritual awareness component the way Herb does. And I want to try that with my new sponsee. Just encouraging her. A lot of it is asking questions, just asking questions that I was never asked when I was doing the AWOL and these other programs. So that's one way of doing the service. But I can, I now think, oh, it's a question of using the 12-step awareness, the 12-step approach to just being helpful with neighbors and with my family and with my friends. And it isn't necessarily that I'm taking them through their problems with an abusive substance. That may not be the situation at all. So that was kind of an aha moment for me with the assignment. So I just
That's great. And you know what? Sometimes service can be just showing up in your own meeting and speaking. For some people that, you know, they don't speak because they're shy or they, you know, they get embarrassed or whatever. Speaking in a meeting, sharing your experience, strength, and hope, that's doing service. That's helping people. So it can be as simple as that. You know, I've also heard putting your carriage away when you go to the grocery store instead of leaving it in the parking lot. You bring it back up to the door. And after I heard that, I cannot leave my carriage in the parking lot anymore. I'm always bringing it back. But, you know, there's a lot of ways to help people. And sometimes we even just have to remember to help ourselves because we tend to put ourselves last. Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
Well,
So
thank you.
at the end of the day, if you feel like you haven't really reached out enough, do something good for yourself.
Mhm. Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Sarah.
Mhm.
All right. Anyone else have any questions, comments, experience? Anything? All right. Well, we absolutely can close early. No time constraints. So if no one else is going to raise their hands, if you guys would all share the serenity prayer so we can close up. God, please grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank
This
you,
was
Lisa.
great. Thank you.